With your FAA glider pilot's license, you can fly a wide variety of different sailplanes, like a pure sailplane that has to be towed into the air, or a touring motor glider like the one above that has its own engine, or even a self-launched glider where the engine deploys from behind the cockpit for takeoff and landing and then is stowed in flight to make the glider as aerodynamically efficient as possible. The FAA wants to make sure that you understand the forces that are acting upon the glider at all times, whether it has an engine on or is just gliding in free flight. What are the forces acting on a glider? Well, when it has an engine deployed, it acts much like an airplane, in which case the engine produces thrust, which pushes the glider through the air. That thrust is overcoming the drag, the aerodynamic drag that wants to pull the glider back and slow it down. The wing produces lift that holds the glider in the air, whereas its weight wants to pull it down due to the force of gravity. So the four forces on a glider, which sometimes the FAA will refer to as an airplane, because when it has an engine, it is experiencing the same forces as an airplane. Those four forces are lift that opposes weight and thrust that opposes drag. FAA is going to have some specific words and terms that they want you to understand about this. Two of them are unaccelerated flight and equilibrium. So unaccelerated flight is when the glider is neither speeding up nor slowing down. Also, it's not in a turn or speeding up upwards or downwards. When a glider is not changing speed or direction, we say that the glider is in unaccelerated flight, which means the forces are in equilibrium. The forces are equal at that time. Equilibrium. Of course, for a glider, the fun starts when the engine stops. And for a glider, those forces are still in equilibrium. The glider, instead of flying straight and level, is always coming downward naturally, okay? But it's not speeding up in any of those directions. It's still just coming down at a nice, continuous speed, not speeding up, not slowing down. When gliding, the forces are still in equilibrium. We still have lift, drag, and weight. We just don't have thrust anymore. Well, the FAA is going to ask you about this. You see, what is making that glider go forward? Think of a glider as a ball rolling down a ramp. What's causing that ball to go down a ramp? Well, it's the force of gravity that's pulling the ball downward, and because it's on a ramp, it goes downward and forward at the same time. The FAA wants you to know that it's the force of gravity that pulls the glider forward. Now, let's look at some examples of how the FAA is going to ask you questions about this on your knowledge test. Example 1, the four forces acting on an airplane or powered glider in flight are, well, we talked about this already. Lift opposes weight and thrust opposes drag. So the answer is A. They will try to trick you by throwing in gravity or even friction. Yes, friction is part of it, but that's part of drag, okay? And gravity, well, that's actually part of weight. So the second one has it there twice, okay? And C, again, they're trying to trick you with using power instead of thrust. Don't fall for that. Lift opposes weight, counteracts the weight, and the thrust counteracts the drag. Okay, let's look at our next question. Example 2. When are the 4 forces that act on an airplane or glider in equilibrium? When are the forces equal? During unaccelerated flight, A. Okay? That's when the forces are equal. B is not correct because that's when the aircraft is accelerating. Well, that wouldn't be equilibrium. And when the aircraft's on the ground, well, it's not generating any lift at all if it's just sitting there on the ground, and it may not even be generating any thrust. Finally, what force provides the forward motion necessary to move a glider through the air? Don't let the FAA trick you. Of course, the glider is generating lift, but that is not the correct answer, okay? Because realize the glider could have an engine or it might not have an engine on it. And what's the force that's moving it in the air? Remember the ball going down the ramp. It's the force of gravity pulling the glider through the air. So C, gravity. And that's what the FAA wants you to know about the forces acting on a glider. If you like this content, please subscribe so that way you can get the answers and the instruction you need to be a better glider pilot.